the cash crisis worse. Talking about Venezuela once again.
Systemic important banks. They removed the one factor into this thing on there called monetary integrity. All right, we are connected for the Friday edition of RTD News. And as always, dealing with some technical issues on the back end here, but I will do my best to bring to you all the interesting headlines worth touching on this Friday. And of course, touching on gold, silver, and fiat currency. And how is my opinion that based upon the amount of, I guess, manipulation as well as the anticipated injection of an unlimited amount of liquidity in the next couple of weeks, months is going to be historical in a very unpleasant way for the majority of people. And then also literally as I'm getting ready to put this together, I get a text message from a good friend of mine in Argentina, an Argentinian that I've been knowing for, almost 20 years now. He texted me and thanked me that Donald Trump has come in and helped prop up the peso. And I'm like, man, what no such thing as a coincidence, but who would have guessed that I would get a text at the same time I'm about to share my 2 cents on how we're witnessing the weaponization of failing fiat currency being utilized by the United States government, which happens to be our national currency. Literally, we're witnessing that, clearly has to be last stages of some kind of something, not only from what gold and silver is telling us, but what the U.S. is willing to do to keep other failing nations propped up, because you can only extend a lifeline for so long while also you're taking on water yourself. So imagine your your ship is sinking, but yet you're not sinking as fast as the rest of the other ships around you. So you're throwing lifelines like, hey, hang on to us. We'll keep you afloat for a couple more weeks, months, years. We'll see. But anyway, it's going to be interesting, man. But had to connect again for another live directly, just because I enjoyed yesterday connecting. Hopefully you guys did as well. And I noticed the algos don't love me as much. But then again, I got to do what I got to do. I mean, just got it is what it is. But before I move forward, let me just make sure I do my typical due diligence. So for those who might be new, you never know who coming across the channel for the first time. So I want to make sure that you are presented with an opportunity to like and subscribe and share, whether it's on YouTube, Rumble, or anywhere else. Follow along, join this journey of understanding monetary literacy and hopefully trying to put together the pieces of the puzzle to make sense of what we're witnessing. We all got a front row seat to an historical event that only happens for a reserve currency close to every 100 years or so. And I'll just share more of my 2 cents as to what I'm referring to by that as well. And as I'm scrolling here, my computer's lagging. So, that's not good. Not a good sign, but we're going to make it work, man. If it's not one thing, it's another. Okay, but I want to just jump right in and not waste any time. I got lots of stories. I want to touch on lots of posts. And so let me check on the community. Who's checking in? We got Rob B checking in. What's up, my friend? We got Faith checking in. Appreciate you. As you guys come in the chat, definitely let me know your thoughts, ideas, suggestions, what you're keeping your eyes on, what concerns you, what excites you. And as always, I notice, whenever I talk politics in particular and I highlight or just reference Trump, I don't get nowhere near as many views. People come in, people leave. People don't want to, I guess, consider or hear a narrative counter to what they want to believe, just because I understand how important it is to have hope and to believe the hype, but you also have to be realistic. So if you're one of those people who don't want to hear anything about this administration, whether it's a previous or current or the future, because I just shared a poll in the Telegram that as of right now, JD Vance is leading the field. And I'm thinking, like, this guy just came on the scene a year ago out of the blue. I remember last year talking about it. We were all on air talking about who's this candidate is going to be. And everybody had their preferred candidates. And all of a sudden, JD Vance just popped up. And people are like, who the heck is that? It didn't matter. He's selected. He's chosen. He's a bought and paid for man. Presidents aren't elected. They're selected. We all know that by now. But it's just the fact that they're talking about JD Vance leading the front runner for 2028. Okay, sure, whatever. But, yeah, okay. See, I'm not going to get started. I'm not going to piss a lot of people off. I apologize. But, I'm sure you don't want me to lie to you. I'm sure you prefer if I keep it 100. So let me know in the chat if you want me to just, sugarcoat it. I can sugarcoat it. I can come on here like a typical streamer and give you what you want to hear just to pump my views and to benefit me, or I can shoot it straight. So just let me know in the chat what you want, straight or sugarcoat it. Let me know. I can give it. I can give it. Okay, so let's just stop wasting time. Let me stop wasting time. Okay, here we go. This is what we're looking at today. And just look at, just once again, I'm sure every commentator is talking about it, so it's not nothing, monumental. But here we are, historical territory, and just look at the ebbs and flows to where we're at now, especially for gold. Gold is, they try to slam it up the road. They try to slam it up, it's rising 4,000 plus. You know what I'm saying? Not only can go up just because this is only going down. And of course, silver. Look at silver has an interesting role. So both of these journeys we're witnessing from their price action, they're telling similar stories, which is the upward trajectory, but they're telling different timings of these narratives as far as the ability to slam the price with future contracts and all that other stuff. So it's going to be a lot more of this, and we'll find out how this week ends, and we'll find out what goes into Bobby Crystal says bittersweet would be good. I hear you, Adrian. What's up, man? Appreciate everybody for checking in as always. Okay, so today I have 7, 8, 9, 10 tabs open, and I want to just share my 2 cents on a variety of them, just because I think it's worth putting together. But the premise of this one here is the fact that I believe that our currency literally is the last lifeline that it will try to be disposed to any failing nation. So yesterday out there I commented on the swap lines and how Europe is a little sketchy on the swap lines as to whether or not they can trust the Federal Reserve to come out with some swap lines in time to prop them up, because everything is denominated in dollars. Every debt, every instrument hold, every asset people think they hold is denominated in dollars. And so there's nowhere near enough dollars to meet the demand of the current levels of debt, which is approximately 350 trillion-ish or so. So right, just to service the debt, we need more liquidity. And so that's why these lifelines will be extended. And I also saw a post. I didn't verify it, and it looked so suspicious that I didn't even want to mention it. But it has to do with a couple other countries. The countries that are heavily indebted in dollar terms, they have no ability to grab any more funding to support their debt, their dollar debt load. And so don't be surprised that the U.S. extends lifelines directly by getting in, injecting cash, sending them USDs, and buying their worthless currencies. It was the Egyptian pound, Turkish lira, and another country that all need dollars. So everybody need Federal Reserve notes to service that, not to prop things up, but to keep their country afloat in the meantime. Okay, so what am I talking about? Let's just get right into it. Let's not waste any more time. Forgive me. I just get so carried away when I come across stories. But this is something that, as a taxpaying citizen and someone who relies upon this currency to, sustain ourselves, when it's just being shifted around to prop up other failing nations, that should be of concern to some. I'm sure it's not, but it should be. So we got U.S. buys Argentine pesos, finalizes 20 billion currency swap. And as I mentioned, this is the first of probably many to come. And it's like, okay, I know Argentina's failing. When, as I mentioned, when I get a text message from a friend in Argentina thanking me that, basically extending them a lifeline, because his quote literally was, because they got the elections coming up, that this lifeline buys time for just for the presidency. They having their elections for their parliamentary cabinets. And as of right now, the people are so pissed, it's swinging to the left, because the left makes promises, and Milei is more on the right. And so he said, I'll read it just so you can see what I say. It says, "Hi, Mike. How are you doing?" It says, "I heard somewhere that the U.S. are saving money buying Argentine pesos. Thanks so much for that. Donald really saved us from going to the left again." And so, once again, right, left paradigm down there. Ultimately, the fiat currency itself is the problem. So buying some of those worthless pieces of paper, like literally, Argentina is very close to Venezuela style activity. They've added zeros to their currency, and literally, it's can't even buy you much of anything. That's why the people down there want dollars, while people here in the U.S., such as myself, and I'd imagine you as well, who realize where fiat is going, you're looking forward to redeeming these notes while you still can, to get physical, to get anything that's tangible, real, that will be an absorbent of the liquidity that is coming. while the rest of the world still is running towards Federal Reserve notes. So that right there lets us know there's still time for this stuff to really play out and get uglier. Okay. I gotta be good. Forgive me. So if you're checking in right now, hit that thumbs up button. Show your love for the channel. Just so people can find out that there are some people out here who resonate with this outside the cuff type of narrative. But let me give you the rundown. It says United States directly purchased Argentine pesos. Argentine pesos on Thursday, finalizing 20 billion currency swap with Argentina Central Bank. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in a social media post, a rare move aimed at stabilizing turbulent financial markets in a cash-strapped Latin American ally. Okay, so also last week or two after this whole idea of a swap came about, Argentina, who is also an ally with Argentina, with China, decided to sell their soybeans to China at a discount. And so it's like, okay, Argentina's playing both sides of the fence. They're using their northern allies as well as their eastern or western, wherever you want to look at it from. So it's like, okay, yeah, all of the taxpayer expense, supposedly. U.S. Treasury is prepared immediately to take whatever exceptional measures are warranted to provide stability to the market. So literally, U.S. Treasury is prepared. So the U.S., our treasurer, our bookkeeping, CPA, our financial stewards, according to the way this country was established, is now to the point where they're prepared immediately to take whatever exceptional measures are warranted to provide stability to the markets. And so think about this. We have the United States government actively getting involved into the financial and monetary policies of another nation. Not only have we been involved in every political area, war, putting puppets in when need be, but now we're directly involved in their financial stability. That should be concerning because, first of all, we're running a deficit. We're up to our eyeballs in debt that's unpayable, but yet the currency that is being created is being sent to buy other worthless currencies. And so just as a side note, as what I'm talking about, let me share with you just a visual aid of what the dollar to peso looks like. And so literally they're sending. So here we go. Let me give you on the foreign exchange. So literally this is the Federal Reserve note to the Argentine peso. So on the screen here, this is what has happened in the last year. Having $1, one Federal Reserve note has appreciated against a failing currency. And so think about this. We're taking something that has perceived value still because it spends in exchange for something that has no value even to its own citizens, and we're buying it. So literally, as you see here, last year, one Federal Reserve note bought you 974 pesos last year. Now it's 1,400. And so if I was to invert this is how much purchasing power. This is how much purchasing power the peso, one peso has lost against a dollar. 31. And we're buying those things. But of course, I know it's a matter of propping up so that Argentina doesn't happen to be the canary in the coal mine and be the nation that unravels the global debt Ponzi scheme. Because if Argentina defaults deliberately, it's going to impact U.S. banks. U.S. banks don't take hits on top of the hits they already taken with commercial real estate. Auto loans is a housing problem. You know, people aren't taking out mortgages as much, and Federal Reserve isn't as generous as they used to be when there was that those lending windows that they would just pay the banks to hold. I can't think of the name of them now, but you know what I'm talking about, where you park funds at the Federal Reserve, they pay you interest for not spending the currency. I'm drawing a blank. What man? You guys know what I'm talking about. Those windows. We talked about them forever, but anyway, so much stuff is you lose track of it. But okay, so I'm saying all this just because this is the monetary manipulation of the shifting of hands of the deck. Take one currency, swap it, whatever, and so you got this, this game of this move currencies around to make it appear as if things are strong, but when they're not. So if I take the same and remove that and put the gold in here, so replace a dollar for gold, an ounce a single peso versus an ounce of gold is down 55% within the last year. So if you held their version of currency, you lost half of what you thought you had. But if you held an ounce of gold over the last year, think about this. You've appreciated in potential purchasing power 124%, because an ounce of gold was 2.5 million pesos a year at the same date. Fast forward to right now, it is 5.7. Yeah, just something out there just to show you some, what's happening in real time. Okay, and so yeah, it should be enough to piss people off, but it is not. But here we are now. Like, remember last year, there was a politician that came out, Paul Gosar, Congressman Paul Gosar, came out with a crazy idea where it seemed crazy at the time, but you can only do it so many times before people started saying, is that a sign that perhaps because of the continual increase in prices, the repo market, Rob B, appreciate you. Last year, June of 2024, Congressman came out with the idea of creating a preemptive $500 Trump bill. And I'm like, other than just kissing his, rear end, like, what are you talking about? Like, $500 bill? There was already a $500 bill in circulation 70 years ago. It was for the banks per se, but it was something that was created. And so I'm like, what is this guy talking about? So I talked about this then. And I'm like, man, is this like, an admission, the fact that they're failing and, they're trying to make it appear as if they're giving the public a commemorative instrument to buy? Or could it become necessary to use in circulation because $100 bill only does maybe two or three good things, depending on what you're trying to do with it, if that. Let me know what you can do with $100 bills at this current moment. But, I remember when a $100 bill was more than enough to do a lot of things, but not anymore. Okay. So by sheer admitting of guilt of inflation getting out of control, we need bigger bills. That's what I was kind of hinting towards. But, once again, that was just show, nothing came from it. It was just more so a way to get on his good side. Okay. And so this is what, people started. Legislation proposes Trump on $500 bill. So this was last year as a result of this. Social media jumped on it. I'm like, wouldn't it be something if, like all other currencies, minus the reserve status, happen to have too much debt and the government decides to print to where they just add one more zero on top of that. So you take 100, turn it to 1,000, take a 50, turn it to 500, take a 220, turn it to 200. You know how it goes, how it usually goes. But I'm like, okay, sure, it wouldn't happen again. But here it is again. This is crazy, son. Like, coincidence, intentional, what? But Trump pushes to put his own face on a $250 bill. And I'm like, I know this is more so just for show. This is not real. Somebody's out here trolling. But then you go to his truth account, and sure enough, this dude retruthed it. And so Donald Trump retruthed this op-ed. Representative Andy Barr, why I'm leading legislation to put Trump on a new $250 bill. And I'm like, what? Okay. So fool me once with the 500. Next year, talk about 250. So say next year, could there be a proposal for a United States note? Not a Federal Reserve note, but a United States note issued by the Treasury that resembles something of this magnitude here, where so we got a silver certificate, which was issued by the United States government. And so we have a little competition. We got a Federal Reserve note, or we got a silver certificate. Wouldn't that be something to get something like that? I wouldn't hold my breath, but 500, 250, clearly it's not a commemorative note that goes into the collections of, people. But then again, you got the Treasury talking about a silver Trump coin as well. So these are things just like, man, like I don't consider none of this coincidental. Clearly, given the environment we're in, there's lots of distractions, aversion taxes. This falls into that category. But then again, to me, it is an admitting of the fact that our currency is no longer respectable, especially when you got gold and silver out here revealing truth. But I think it's something worth keeping an eye on. Okay, let me keep it moving. I don't want to bore you much longer, but I do want to get into some thoughts and share with you some commentary from other individuals on these same subject matters. And so here we have Octavia Costa, former person I had on the show, and he's out here talking about this Besant U.S. bailing out Argentina temporarily. Like, and what's that's funny, but the IMF has extended unlimited amount of lifelines to Argentina for the sake of indebting them to steal their real world assets. And I saw another post where Besant was kind of like backing up the IMF, saying IMF, has done everything they can. Now it's time for U.S. to step in and help out where we can. And I'm like, what, you gonna extend them more of a lifeline, more debt? Like that's gonna help anything, And so I know that this is like what happens in the midst of, a reset and a restructuring of the monetary system. I know that, but once again, I just wish more people took interest in this subject matter and cared and ran for cover. But let me just share with you his thoughts real quick. Besant's recent comments on Argentine Peso being deeply undervalued. So the reason he said it's the reason that they invested in the Argentine Peso is because their currency is undervalued. I forgot to mention that part. Alongside a currency swap deal that effectively involved the direct purchase of pesos mark a fundamental shift in how the U.S. engages in foreign exchange policy. He framed it as a chance to buy low and sell high, a statement with no modern precedent. So he's quoting Besant. Besant is buying the peso because it's undervalued, so that after buying it, it appreciates, and then they will, I guess, sell it back to the world or sell it back to the people. Who knows? Says past swaps or interventions were precautionary, not a directional investment or proactive support of emerging market currencies. It says, in effect, Besant admitted that the U.S. dollar is overvalued in his view. While some will call this a bailout, the structure shows otherwise. The U.S. is taking an active risk-bearing position in the peso, meaning the United States government is actively getting involved in literally signing off on the debt issues that Argentina has by us participating in their currency destruction. So there are historical parallels, but none involved at an outright purchase of the foreign currency. This comes as the Fed and Treasury enforces fiscal dominance through financial repression. With the U.S. interest costs now the highest share of the GDP among major economies, and an administration that openly sees the dollar as too strong. The implications are profound in my view. So literally, he's saying the dollar's too strong, and therefore, this is how they're trying to use some of that strength to prop up other nations. And so we are in the midst of a full-fledged weaponization for the good of our country, according to those that are in charge. So these are things that I believe people will definitely look back in history books and be like, man, they tried to use our own lifeline to extend it to others. So that, once it all comes crumbling down at some point, who's going to save America? Who's going to save us? Who's going to save you outside of yourself? This is what's happening. Okay, keep it moving. I don't want to stay here, but here's $1.98, and that's still too strong. It's basically what Tavi Costa is saying he's experiencing. Okay. I got more stuff here. Let me try to get to all of it. Bit by bit, piece by piece. Let me delete some stuff. So we have to revisit and talk about gold and silver. I have a lot of interesting columns and posts from people. So as I mentioned, we got gold and silver still in the green. It's going to be fluctuating the way that it will, according to the pressures or the headwinds that the monetary authorities face in trying to keep these things before, keep them out of the attention of the masses. And so once again, look at my Twitter feed, my X feed. There's so much hype right now about the banks and institutions around possession of Bitcoin and stable coins. It's like, okay, yeah, it needed to divert some attention. Okay. What was I about to talk about? I was about to touch on silver. Correct. Okay. So here's something that, once again, and this is why I enjoy following and hearing from a lot of smarter people than myself. Here is a X account from a Mr. Uppy. Has 8,200 followers, so take of it, make of it what you may. But he's sharing what it looks like some sound information. It says silver lease rates just hit 39.2 in London. That's not a typo. Physical silver is vanishing, and the banks are scrambling to borrow what's left. And so this got 17,000 follows, and it shows here a screenshot of what looks like silver price activity in London. And to the far right, you see gold, you see silver, you see platinum and palladium. And silver in yellow is far higher than all the other, what looks like lease rates. And that should be concerning. And then so it said lease rate to who? London market. And then Revelations makes it easier to understand. He says, how can I explain the significance of this to my wife or a golden retriever so that they understand the scope of the physical market versus the paper market? And so just to read what Grok, let's hear Grok's explanation. So this is what how Grok simplified it, their AI. Imagine physical silver like actual candy bars you can hold and eat. Paper markets are like IOU promising candy bars. Lots of those exist, but they don't mean real candy is plentiful. It says high release rates mean borrowing a real candy bar is super expensive because they're scarce. Banks are desperate for the physical stuff, while paper IOUs might not show the shortage yet. This signals a big supply crunch in the real world. So when it comes to Snickers, there's a demand for lots of Snickers, but there's more paper Snickers than there are physical Snickers. And so the leasing side of things, if leasing rates are that high, meaning that you got people wanting to take possession of it to cover shorts on their end and say they have physical, and or they're trying to use them to cover up some of their own paper mess to show that they got physical ready. I'd imagine, because here in the Eastern Hemisphere or Western Hemisphere, the Crimex don't do delivery. They do promises, or they redeem in cash if things get out of hand, or they'll give you the excuse of, due to extreme demands, we won't be able to deliver until 6 months from now. But if you want to settle right away, we can give you cash. That's how things are kind of done in the paper game. And this is things I've heard and learned from watching a lot of other people who specialize in this stuff, where they can't give you physical. They'll cash you out, or they'll just prolong the delivery date to this point where it's like, by that time, hell, I need physical now. I don't have time to wait. So that's just something about silver and how crucial things are in the silver market. Now, here's another one from someone else that's very knowledgeable, Jamie Carrasco. He has 10,000 followers. He does a lot of interviews, very knowledgeable. And so he's talking about the backwardation. So here he's saying, actually showed a picture. Here's the picture. The picture is, today it's $50 to get a physical ounce plus premium. But in the futures that ends in December 25th on Christmas, it's $48. So that negative spread shows how it's more important to get it today, because you can't afford to wait till Christmas, because Santa's not going to be plentiful at that particular dollar amount there, in a nutshell. But this is what he said. This is what he had to say. He says, have never seen this level of backwardation in the future market. It says something has finally broken when spot silver is 50 and December futures contracts is 48. Better get your physical in your possession or own producers with revenues on the ground. But the market is telling the futures markets are broken. And so that's two stories there dealing with silver, and some things that the average normie, the newbie may not even care about. They just see the price. You got the lease rates, the interbank dealings of how to settle some contracts and all that other stuff they created on top of it. And today you have the whole backwardation side of things, where it's more important now to get physical amongst those that are in the markets in the commercial space than it is to wait for the future, because the future clearly is not going to be $48 unless something breaks, unless something gives, unless they invent new ways to slam the spot price down in this side of the world. But you got to remember, this side of the world, the Crimex is literally Crimex and LBMA. They're competing against the Shanghai Futures Exchange and all the stuff they're doing out there. So you got two different worlds: physical, paper. Paper's losing, physical starting to rise, and therefore, by Christmas, those future contracts got to adjust, or the Crimex is going to be in trouble. So just a little something there for my people who are getting a hold of this stuff for the first time. Okay, so what else I got? A couple other things there. Outside of the narrative of tariffs and how this administration loves to play like, oh, we're sticking it to China, then they're going to comply, they're going to bow down. I wouldn't be so sure about that, because once again, China is a nation that produces everything. They have alliances with nations that produce real stuff that can send them stuff cheaper. They already have swap lines. They got trade agreements. They got all types of stuff with the BRICS and everything else that is still there. It hasn't gone nowhere. We don't hear about it, but it's still there. And so here's something that really caught my attention, because, of course, apart from this, I wouldn't have known. But another little excerpt from X that is worth considering. So here we got Aaron Slaudoff, who has 38,000 followers. So he's obviously well respected. And he's giving some information about how China's cornered the game when it comes to earth supplies. China just weaponized the entire rare earth supply chain. Then he goes on to explain why. Get used to reading Chinese MOFCOM, MOFCOM, which is this Shanghai Futures like printout or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but take my man his word. Bulletins, because they're writing American industrial policy now. It says announced today, and this was as of yesterday morning. It says any product containing greater than 0.1% Chinese rare earth materials needs Beijing's approval before re-export to third countries. So literally, what I read right there is that anything that is being built or produced that comes from rare earth minerals provided by China, if you're going to build it to sell it, you have to let us know. Because obviously they're going to probably put some type of taxes on it or put some type of extra tariffs on it to combat this current administration's desire to, make trade fair again. You can't have fair trade when you're running deficits, indebted to the world, and you produce nothing. And everybody else is producing and sending us real stuff, and we giving them counterfeit currency. So that right there lets me know that it's going to be hard to pull this off, because ain't no fair trade in a lopsided war. But it says, doesn't matter if you manufactured it in Taiwan, Vietnam, or Texas. Chinese dysprosium in your magnets, ? Chinese gallium in your chips. Beijing gets veto power over the sale. This is the nuclear option. U.S. spent 3 years trying to deny China access to advanced chip-making tools. China just responded with the chokehold on literally every semiconductor fab, AI data center, defense contractor, and EV manufacturer on Earth. It says everything runs on Chinese rare earths. Building alternative supply chains takes 5 to 10 years minimum. We don't have 5 to 10 years, effective December 1st. So this December, according to this, China just clamped down on the game. If it comes from us, you got to let us know where it's going, and we got to say yay or nay. It says the AI boom just hit a hard ceiling, and we're still pretending we can offshore our way to prosperity. Time to reindustrialize. Our lives depend upon it, because they do. And so, like, just that, once again, like that, lets me know that, this tariff, trade war, currency war, there's conflict in every area of our lives. And because China has clearly been leading the way for the last 20 plus years, 30 years, since the U.S. deliberately deindustrialized our nation with the NAFTA trade and all that other stuff, here we are now, dependent upon the world, extending paper swap lines to failing countries At the same time, the world is moving away from our currency. Gold and silver is telling us that the U.S. is losing this war on currency, and there are no winners other than the individuals that have this information, realize what's at stake, have made necessary preemptive and proactive attempts to protect and preserve everything they work hard for. And as I'm thinking this, I got a book come to mind. Actually, I got a couple books. Some of my favorites: When Money Dies, The Money Bubble, The Bankruptcy of Our Nation, When Money Dies, the real one about Germany. This one here is about Zimbabwe. This one's about Germany. The New Case for Gold, The Death of Money. All great books. So like people who read 1 or 2 or 3 of these is more than you would get at a university, because in these books contain truth of some kind. But if you only listen to what you hear on the media from mainstream news sources, you're going to get propaganda. And this book here by Edward Bernays, the G part, if you know, it gives you so the G part, let me read the G part. It says, it's kind of small. It says, I can't even read it. I need my glasses. But yeah, mainstream media people are the ones going to be on the outside looking in. But yeah, okay. So I got a couple more, but we've been going for quite some time now. But I will give you some of what the mainstream's focusing on right now. This is what the mainstream focusing on right now. Working on it. Senator Loomis backs Jack Dorsey's push for a Bitcoin tax exemption. So here we are. The world's shifting tremendously, and our Congress people are so focused on revolutionizing our monetary system in a digital sense, leading the way with Bitcoin tax exemption. And so just to give you an idea of what this is going on, I mean, this is what I'm sure, I haven't verified this, but I'm good to say you turn on Fox News, MSNBC, any one of them stations, they probably got Senator Loomis on there now, or Jack Dorsey, or Anthony Papiano, or Mike Novogratz, or they even got Michael Saylor on there. Those five spokesmen are the Bitcoin advocates, crypto advocates. Every episode, they got somebody on telling you what the future is. That clearly was just accidental. Satoshi Nakamoto was clearly just a genius that decided to put a revolutionary tech into the world at the same time that gold and silver was going to. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, I can go on and on, but I'm not. Okay, so let me just give you a case. It says U.S. Senator Loomis is developing legislation to exempt small Bitcoin transactions from capital gains tax, a move inspired by Jack Dorsey's call to make Bitcoin usable for everyday payments. It says the proposal seeks to remove the tax burden on minor crypto per minor. So literally, and I mentioned this before, this is what's going to happen. They're going to give people a $1,200, possibly one-time free spin of your cryptos. It's a STEMI check, but on the actual crypto holder. It says such as buying coffee or groceries which currently trigger taxable events under the IRS rule. It says Loomis' upcoming bill introduces a de minimis exemption that would exclude crypto transactions under $300. Damn, I thought it would be at least $1,200 from capital gains reporting, with an annual cap of $5,000 per taxpayer. So they're not even giving us a stimmy check worth. At least give us $1,200 worth one time or a couple times. Talking about $300 at one swipe or one scan. Okay, yeah. So I bet you mainstream media right now is loving that. And they're talking to Cynthia Loomis right now. Okay. On another note, this is something I find to be very interesting. I'd be curious to see what happens from this. So here we have Roger Ver, Bitcoin Jesus, agrees to a $48 million deal to resolve his U.S. tax fraud case. And once again, I talked about this before, but this is not coincidental. The U.S. went after Roger Ver after he wrote his book called Hijacking, which exposes the corruption and criminality in the Bitcoin ecosystem. He started calling out names in a negative sense of a lot of people who didn't want their name talked about. All of a sudden, somebody knocked on his door overseas, and he's been in custody ever since. And he has been silenced because he can't continue to speak that. So there's no coincidence that the moment his book dropped, more people began questioning Bitcoins hijacking, and he gets silenced. Literally within weeks, I'm watching all this, documenting all this, because I've been very critical. Because you zoom out, how the game ends, but it's just in between. And Roger Ver, if he gets out, it's good to say a part of his NDA will be you can't talk about Bitcoin no more in a negative sense. So he's going to stop dogging BTC, and he may not even be allowed to promote BCH. So we'll see, but he may go completely silent because his life might be spared with this settlement. So just more things to question. But anyway, just checking in, taking a minute, share my 2 cents. Yeah, lots of stuff here. But for those that came in late, I realized I wasn't really streaming fully on. I wasn't streaming all the way on Rumble because I didn't click the button. But for those who may be catching this late or whatever, the whole point was talking about how currencies are becoming a joke because our U.S. government is propping up a failing currency. And actually, let me see. I actually yeah, I do. No, I don't. Yeah, I got pesos. I got all types collect current. I got all types of currencies. Oh yeah, I do. 100 peso note is no longer in circulation. Like these things right here. When I got this, when I was there last, this was worth maybe $20. Now it's worth 20 cents. Yeah, and the U.S. are buying these things. Anyway, but anyway, it's for those who checking in, man. Appreciate everybody. Thanks for blessing with your presence. If you haven't, if you're still here, I need your help. I need your help. Hit that thumbs up button right now. Show your love for the channel. Hit that thumbs up button because it hopefully alerts the algorithm that people care. And as always, for those who need strategies, suggestions, like, yeah, I just, once again, I don't like, continue plugging, but I'm like, dude, like, you gotta do something. Everybody should have a game plan, a strategy as to how they position themselves. So once again, like been warning people, yelling from the mountaintops. We got gold backs. There's another way, links in the description. Get yourself some. You can't go wrong with them. And also, you got mini gold bars. Links in the description. Check them out if you guys are interested. And then what else you got here? There's things, Quicksilver Wealth System. Everybody literally can have their own silver bullion store and helping other people get their weight up. The silver team does that. I'm saying you can buy from yourself and sell from yourself. Be your own bullion store. So these are things that people should really consider if you haven't already, in my opinion. But once again, it is what it is. But all the information you need is down below. And I got a couple other thoughts and ideas. I might come back and do some videos. I got a lot of stuff I'm working on. But anyway, be blessed, be safe. Shalom.